As a GP, I quite often see people who end up with depression caused by burnout. Everything has just got on top of them. They feel completely overwhelmed and paralysed and unable to function like they normally do. And it can be quite bewildering. And one thing people often say to me is, this isn't me. This isn't like me. I don't fail to function like this. I'm not the sort of person to get depressed, because they're very bewildered by it. And one analogy I find quite helpful in thinking about this is the analogy of a stress fracture. So if you're someone who runs a lot or goes on long walks or long marches, then you might end up with a stress fracture in your foot. So it's the continual pounding of the walking or the running or the marching that gradually leads to that injury. It's not that you fall over at one point and break your foot, but that after a certain point, one of the bones in your foot just has this break in it, which is called a stress fracture. And afterwards, you can't even walk. Now, that sort of person is going to say to themselves, I'm not the sort of person who can't walk. I always walk, I run, I march, I walk a long distance, and now I can't walk. I'm not the sort of person to have that happen to them. And yet, they're exactly the sort of person that might get a stress fracture, because you have to walk a lot in order to get a stress fracture. And it's exactly the same with burnout. It's the continual pounding of pressure, maybe pressure from work, pressure from emails, pressure from having too many responsibilities. You're doing a lot of work, but outside of work, maybe you do this or that, you have different hats that you wear, maybe there's family responsibilities, maybe everyone comes to you in the family and asks for help because you're always the person that's there for them, ready to help and to support others. And so you're not the sort of person who can't function. You're the sort of person who functions very well. You're the sort of person who, when the going gets tough, you pedal harder rather than back off. So far from being not the sort of person that might get burnt out, you're exactly the sort of person that might get burnt out, because you'd be willing to do enough pressure and not notice it and not find yourself enough space within the pressure to recover before you take on more pressure, so that eventually something snaps and then you can't face looking at your emails, you can't face going to work, you dread it when the phone rings. And that's what happens with burnout. So it's a matter of rethinking your understanding about why people burn out and why people get depressed. Now, there are plenty of other reasons why people get depressed. I'm just talking about burnout here. And there's a lot that you can do about it, and it doesn't mean never doing anything stressful ever again, because we need a certain amount of stress in our lives. It's actually good for us. What gets us up in the morning, gives us motivation, gives us purpose. So it's good to be someone who takes on stress to some extent, as long as you have ways of making sure you recover. But if ever you've had burnout and thought, I'm not that sort of person, just take time to re-understand it, recalibrate exactly who is that sort of person, because you probably are exactly that sort of person. You just haven't understood it till now because it's never been relevant to you.